Hey all you GBA type peoples, Blue from KantoCast is here,
with Oldmantup.
and we are here bringing you pivotal moments, the defining moments in each of the D-League matches for Week 1 for Season 2. We are going to tell you our thoughts on what the breaking point in the match was, where the momentum switched from one player to the other, which ultimately won them the battle. So, first up, we have the Shelmets going up against the Blaziken. So the Shelmets brought Houndoom, Doublade, Tornadus T, Blissey, Latios, and Manphy. The Blaziken had Mamoswine, Alakazam, Entei, Manectric, Lucario, and Skarmory. Tup, what were your thoughts on the pivotal moment in this match?
My thoughts in the pivotal moment was more a series of events which we have talked about and more or less agree on, and that was the moment when Mighty Mamoswine of the Blazikens clicked Sacred Fire on Entei, and Super Gassy of the New York Shelmet switched in his Hotweiler and got the Flash Fire boost, and Mighty Mamoswine had to switch out because he was choice banded Entei and would just be feeding this dog Flash Fire boost and had to sack off Mamoswine. Now, hindsight's 2020, this is purely my opinion. I don't think Mamoswine was the appropriate sack at that moment. Might it have been to Nick? We play differently, so it may make more sense to him than it does to me. But I think late game Mamoswine would have had more value than he had. But like I said, you're in the heat of battle. You have to sack something after giving it that boost. You got to make a really tough call.
I agree. And first, can we just take a moment to appreciate the genius nickname that is Hotweiler?
Exactly.
I mean, it's good. Yeah, I mean,
It is.
Anytime you're forced to switch a mon out into another, particularly because you're choiced and you come into one of those situations like that, it's never a good thing. And that was kind of the crucial moment, I think, the pivotal moment, no pun intended. But, you know, there was some back and forth between the crit on Entei from the Hurricane that Tornadus landed. Ultimately, like, that was a big blow. Don't get me wrong, that was big. But,
Right.
you know, I think the switching and the sacking that took place there, which Tup and I also talked about, Mamoswine being a very good answer to Blissey, which was still hanging around towards the end of that battle. Entei would have had a harder time taking it out than Mamoswine might have. So, you know, ultimately it kind of came down to, well, you hit a move that boosted somebody and then you had to switch out because you were choiced. That's bad. So, you know, when you gotta sack something, bad things happen. So that was the turning point, I think, which ultimately gave the Shelmets a 2-0 win.
Yes, 2-0.
Yeah. But ultimately a very good game played by both players.
Oh, exactly. It was a fantastic match. It was really fun to watch, too.
Yeah, and I'll make a comment about the pace of play in all of the matches going forward here, but this match, I think, had the quickest punch for punch.
All right, that was definitely a knock-em-down brawl, not a I'm going to switch in a wall to fix you, and you're going to switch in a wall to fix me, and counter for counter. It was punch for punch.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes for a good match to watch, as we've said.
Yeah. Kudos to Super Gassy for bringing Hotweiler, who all the draft analysts crapped on him for and said he would never bring to a match. So, shout out to Super Gassy for that.
Week 1, that shows character.
And it worked. It worked. Okay, let's move on to the second match, and that was between the Seattle Staraptors and the Miami Dolphinions. Now, Blue, what did you have picked out as the pivotal moment for this match?
Okay, so I just want to go off and say, you know, if anybody that listens to me knows that I hate hacks, right? And I really didn't want to be the guy that blamed hacks on a battle for this. But, full disclosure, Tup and I talked about this, and ultimately I think the fact that Registeel got a para off on Sylveon and then had 3 sequential para hacks onto Sylveon as it was trying to Calm Mind and Baton Pass out, that's not good. Bad things happen when you lose 3 turns of play. A momentum shift, if you will. And then, you know, just for salt in the wound, when Sylveon actually does get the Baton Pass off into the Dragonite, I believe it was, who also got paralyzed and then also got Parahacks the next turn.
Yeah.
just for style points.
Yeah, that was really rough and really hard to watch. I mean, I think it was 3 consecutive turns of para hacks on the Sylveon, including the directly after it was paralyzed with a T-Wave.
Yep.
But yeah, that was definitely the beginning of the end. When Sylveon couldn't do anything it wanted to. I mean, I don't know that it had Heal Bell, but if it did, it never had the opportunity to use it. And another thing, which I kind of skipped over, was the team setups that there really wasn't much of an answer outside of Nidoking, apparently, for Clefable. I mean, the Dolphinions had Nidoking, Hitmontop, Sylveon, Weavile, Dragonite, and Rotom Wash. Now, Weavile could carry the Poison Jab, but we saw Weavile out with Clefable and it didn't use Poison Jab. So I mean, I don't know the exact set, so I don't know, but I mean the Staraptors I think just had a better, more well-prepared team with Clefable, Victini, Registeel, Megalopony, Yanmega, and Tentacruel. And ultimately it got the Seattle Staraptors a 5-0 victory over the Dolphinions.
Yeah, and likewise, to a counterpart of the last battle that we just talked about, I had written down the Battle of Walls for this match because ultimately Gearhart was just switching in between Clefable and Registeel. And once, like Tup said, once that Nidoking went down, I mean, you're free to do that, and there's not a whole lot you can do. So moving forward, we have another kind of slow and steady battle. We had the Bouffalant Bills going up against the Ackerton Stantlers. And 8-Bit Insomniac, if I butchered that, you have my personal apology right here and now. I'm sorry. But the Bills brought Exploud, Azelf, Dusclops, Umbreon, Mega Manectric, and Crobat. And the Stantlers brought Scizor, Roserade, Latias, Infernape, Vaporeon, and Mega Sableye. So, Tup, what were your thoughts?
Now this was a really good battle against 2 of the premier battlers in this league, and it was one of the ones I was the most looking forward to watching. And I'm gonna throw 2 possible out for this one, because the one was so early in the match, I hate to call it a pivotal moment, but it really affected the rest of the match. And that was turn 2, when Mega Sableye went down from Exploud, and that was just, I don't want to say it was devastating, but it set Ellie back really early. And just from watching her side of the match, she said it herself the rest of the match. If Sableye hadn't gone down right away, I would have had it to bring on this, or bring in against this, or bring in against this. And it really set her back early, and it took away some of her answers to some of the Pokemon that she would have had later in the game. But if I had to say one that gets my vote for the pivotal moment, is going to be when Crobat lived the extra sensory from Roserade. And if I'm not mistaken, that was a Choice Specs Roserade. And that is insane. I thought it was going to survive, but then I heard, oh, Choice Specs, nope, that's definitely going to die. Survived, and then started racking up kills. And when that didn't kill in that moment, I think that took any momentum that Ellie Hatter was building from that point on, and it was just a slow slide downhill from there.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. While losing Meg Sableye early in the match like that was definitely heartbreaking, I don't know that, I feel like you could come back from a 5-6 down, after turn 2. You still got some options, but once that Crobat lived, I mean, it was just free to wreck shop. And I believe the Bills even got to a point where they said, all right, I need Latias down to this amount so that Crobat can come in and Brave Bird. And once Crobat was free to do so, it was pretty much GG. And I believe it got 3 kills, Crobat did. So, it just absolutely wrecked shop. And like I said, excellently played by everybody. I think the Bills played a very slow and steady match, maybe slightly more methodical, if that's the right word I want to use there. But still, a really good game by both of the players. I think this one was one of my favorite matches from the week. Not that I'm picking favorites, because I'm impartial.
Okay, well, let's move on to the last match. And this was the match you and I had the most trouble with picking a pivotal moment for, because it was such a close match the whole time.
Oh.
And that was the San Francisco Arcaniners versus the Houston Gastros. And this paired up Sceptile MC, aka George, the sole returning GBA D-League coach, against the greenest of the green, M&J TV, of the Houston Astros, who had never been in draft format before, not as familiar as most of the other competitors, and that stark of a contrast just in the competitors. This match was a lot closer than I think anybody thought it was going to be. So I mean, my hat is immediately tipped to M&J TV for putting up the fight that he did. But let's take a look at the rosters real quick. The Arcaniners brought Zapdos, Shaman, Golurk, Landorus I, Melodic, and Yuxi, and the Gastros brought Mew, Mega Aerodactyl, Nidoqueen, Raikou, Sock, and Suicune. So what were some of the plays that you had picked out that were candidates for the pivotal moment in this match? Because there was a bunch.
So we had a couple picked out initially, right? The crit from the Shaman Seed Flare onto Raikou was a big in, right? Because after that happened, you didn't really have a safe switch in to Shaman Seed Flare. So that it was so early in the match though that I didn't really feel comfortable saying that that's what it was. Just because, you know, like with 8-Bit Insomniac and the Mega Sableye, that early in, I feel like you might be able to bounce back a little bit, but it was definitely a setback. I don't know if it was the setback. Some other things that happened was the Nidoqueen going down to Zapdos, and then, you know, Melodic getting taken out, the wall answer from Aerodactyl with a crit. But ultimately, if I had to pick one, if I had to play devil's advocate and pick just one, I think it was the Gastrodons leaving Mega Aerodactyl in on a scarfed Zapdos. Now, I don't know if M&J didn't know that it was scarfed at that point. I don't know if you could really analyze speed based on the matchups that Zapdos had against his team. But ultimately, you know, once Aerodactyl went down, once that critical Ice Fang went down, because keep in mind, the Arcaniners had 4 ice weaknesses on that team.
Yeah, and they were the last 4 ones left in the battle, too.
I mean, ice attacks are pretty crucial when you're in a situation like that. You want to be able to read the wind condition pretty well. And, you know, once that Aerodactyl went down, not only the fastest member on the team and possibly the hardest hitting member on that team, the super effective attacks to boot, that's pretty rough. So I gave it to Aerodactyl going down to Zapdos on like turn 20, I think it was.
Yeah, I agree with all those candidates, but I'm going to go with the Nidoqueen falling to Zapdos Extrasensory, and not so much that it was KO'd by the Extrasensory, but just in the fashion that it did. If I'm not mistaken, it got KO'd on a switch-in, which preserved the fact that M&J TV didn't know that Zapdos was scarfed. I watched his side of the battle, and he said after that Zapdos KO'd the Aerodactyl, it was the epiphany that he realized that it was scarfed. And I think the way that was taken out, not only did it give Sceptile MC the ability to freely volt switch at his leisure, but it also, like I said, preserved the fact that he never had an idea what item that Zapdos had on it.
And keeping in mind, too, that volt-switching Zapdos is ultimately what won the Arcaniners the match.
Oh, yeah.
Living on 1% health.
Kills.
1% health to win. Pretty genius. Just, that's playing the numbers right there.
Right.
You could sit and go back and forth. This series of events all happened within a couple turns as well. So, I mean, this match was just bananas. That's why we saved it for the last, actually. Spoilers. But there it is. A tough match. And I think that goes to show how good the match was too, honestly.
Right. I mean, the Zapdos itself showed how much preparation that George put into this. Not only did he have all of his calcs nailed down, but I mean, having the Extrasensory on Zapdos, which I didn't even know that it got. It turns out it's an XD Gale of Darkness throwback move. The way he had the HP distribution on Zapdos so it could switch in 4 times to Stealth Rocks and still live with that 1% left. I mean, that's playing smart Pokemon. That's knowing what your guys have, how to completely and properly get your Pokemon set up, and just the basic knowledge of that won him the match in the long run.
Arcaniners definitely knew what the win condition was there for them and played it very brilliantly. But with that, I believe we have covered all 4 matches for Season 2 of the D-League, Week 1. Tup, do you have any comments?
Hey, I just want to congratulate all the competitors getting their first weekend and everyone for having a great battle. I mean, all these matches were really close outside of the one that was, decimated by hacks. So, all the matches were close. Everything was 2-0 or below outside of the one match. So, kudos to everybody for preparing and just getting week 1 out of the way, and hopefully everybody has great luck moving forward and we keep these great matches up.
Well said, Tup. And with that, I hope that you have enjoyed Pivotal Moments. I'm glad you guys watched, or listened, rather. And hopefully we will see you back next week, next Thursday, when we cover Week 2's Pivotal Moments for the Season 2 GBA D-League.
Catch you on the flip side, guys. Peace.